This is Aude and you are listening to the Will Talk podcast. And today was the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, stage 3 from Lagacilly to Angers.
Bonsoir and welcome back to the Wheel Talk podcast for Stage 3. A big thank you to Aude from Movistar for that lovely introduction. I'm joined this evening in a beautiful setting. I think probably the nicest setting that we've done the podcast this week. Georgie Howe, good evening. Do you want to set the scene?
Bonsoir. We are sitting in probably a classicist dream, if I'm going to be completely honest. We are sitting in cobbled streets, very quiet Monday evening here in Angers, a town in France where the stage finished today. We've just had the press gallery in this beautiful converted church on the inside. However, we still had the exposed beams and chandeliers on the inside, which was quite the sight when everyone's head down and writing over some very important stories, which we'll go into later today. On the exterior, we have stone masonry. It's all stacked up in a non-conforming manner, which gives a lovely texture to the facade of the building. But across from us, we have the Repoussoir du Tetre Saint-Laurent, which is, I thought it was a church, but it's actually a monument of, basically a monument of resistance that dates back to medieval times. And it's a neo-Gothic structure, has a lovely steeple. I've read briefly that it's resisted many a war that's come through this area, and as we know, France has seen its fair share of battles over the years. So no doubt it carries a lot of memories there. It's quite the scene and quite the setting to be discussing what we saw today.
And many a war it was today, as you said, Georgie Howe. But before we get into it, Matt de Neef, what have you got in front of you? We had a wonderful press buffet this evening, and yeah, it looks like you brought some snacks to the chat.
Yes, bonsoir. No history lesson for me tonight. I'll just talk about food. I've got some sort of half bagel number here with some, looks like some ham of some description, cream cheese, a nice little focaccia or something like that as well. So yes, we've actually been looked after very well today in terms of food, which doesn't always happen on tour. Sometimes there's nothing, sometimes there's mere scraps. And it looked like that was going to be the case today, but we got looked after in the end. So very happy. We're sitting outside. We've got all our gear. We're ready to go, ready to talk about what was, in the end, quite an eventful day's bike racing.
And like the riders, it was indeed a long stage for us. But we're going to get stuck into the breakdown of what happened today in stage 3. So we had the start in Lagacilly to Angers, another fast and furious 162 kilometers that was destined for the sprinters. However, some teams had other ideas in mind. So a breakaway went within the first 30 kilometers of the race with Clémence Letamir from Arkea, Alison Jackson, the Canadian champion from EF Education Oatly, Sarah Martin, another national champion of Spain with Movistar, and then to round it out, Catalina Anis Soto from Laboral Kuchka, the Chilean champ. So the only one there without a national champ's jersey was the French rider. So that break quickly gained 2 minutes. So I think everyone was pretty happy to have an easier day. The first 2 days were pretty rough. SD Works took full control with around 80 to 90 kilometers to go, putting almost all their riders at the front to keep that gap within 3 minutes. So things were looking pretty good. Nothing too exciting was happening. We were on a really long transfer, but it wasn't until around 35 kilometers to go that the action started to happen in the stage, where a crash took down a number of riders and split the peloton for a moment. Thankfully, nothing serious, and everyone managed to rejoin the bunch. Then Vos and Wiebers were the two main contenders for the sprint points, with Wiebers taking 13 points ahead of Vos. Make sure you check out Abby Mickey's piece on that fight for green that will be going live. Thanks to the efforts from Kopecky and Dijkert, the peloton closed in on the 4-rider break, bringing the gap down pretty quickly to 1 minute. And so within that 5.8 kilometers to go, the riders were caught after many attempts from Martin and Ali Jackson to go solo. The most dramatic part of the day, though, came at 3.8 kilometers to go, where there was a huge crash on the right-hand turn. And it was actually 2 isolated crashes that we didn't realize until we went back and reviewed the crash. And now we're going to get into that quite a bit later because there's a lot to talk about within that moment and how that's going to impact the race. Most notably, Demi Vollering came down and it was a really rough crash for her. 2 of her teammates had to push her to the finish, and the timing of that as well, when the sprint was going on, the coverage was going to Demi, so it was quite hard to follow what was happening. But again, we're going to get into the crash a little bit later. So into that final kilometre, the pace was super high. It was Anna van der Breggen doing most of the pull, and then the fantastic Imogen Wolf from Visma was lining up on the right-hand side of the road. And then Marie Linette from FDJ took the front with to support Ali Wollaston with 700 metres to go. And then Rueg decided to take a flyer with 400 metres to go. One could argue maybe a little bit too soon, but it was pretty fierce attack into that finale that Kopecky had to get directly on the wheel. And actually that affected Kopecky's ability to lead out any further. So Wiebes actually launched her own move for the win at 2:50 to go and managed to hold off Marianne Vos to take the win, with Wollaston coming in third. So lots of talking points tonight, guys. Where do we start?
Well, we can start with the fact that SD Works, if you go and read Matt's piece on the Escape Collective website, SD Works actually took responsibility and chased down the breakaway.
Yeah, I remember a stage 2 years ago. It was actually the corresponding stage in 2023 where SD Works had Wiebes as the big favourite on the day and they just refused to work. And that hasn't been an isolated incident over the last few years. We've often seen that team, despite having the best sprinter in the world, refusing to take the responsibility that they should be taking. Just saying hello to some of our colleagues from Cycling News and Cycling Weekly walking past. Hello. Refusing to take responsibility for the chase that they should be taking responsibility for. It paid off for them that time in 2023. And this time, though, they committed wholeheartedly, and every single rider apart from Wiebes was on the front today. Kopecky was on the front with about 25k still to go, despite being Wiebes' last rider in the lead-out. And it was actually kind of refreshing to see that happen. And Wiebes was talking in her post-race press conference about how they wouldn't have committed to that chase as wholeheartedly if they were still going for GC. If they were still going for GC, if they still had Kopecky or Van der Breggen as options, then they wouldn't have committed like that because they would have been saving their riders for the mountains later in the race, which was interesting. But then she also went on to say that she might not have even had the chance to sprint today if they had GC options, which seemed a bit far-fetched to me. I couldn't imagine bringing a rider like Wiebes to the Tour. But her argument was, that they were just going to save everything and not give her a leader, which, doesn't ring quite true to me. But either way, interesting that they their approach changed today as a result of not having GC contenders anymore.
Yeah, and speaking of the sprint, unfortunately, one of the top sprinters was not there to contest it. Elisa Balsamo came down pretty hard. We have confirmation that she is okay. Okay, I want to rewind a little bit and talk about the crash because I think maybe let's focus about that, how it happened.
Yeah, I mean, I was going through the buses this morning in the stage start, and I chatted with a few DSs, a few riders specifically about the last 5Ks, because on the Wheel Talk podcast about 2 weeks ago, we previewed this race, and we earmarked this stage as one that is hectic. We saw, we had the privileged situation of looking at Velevue with all the hazards marked, and it was like a complete maze of hazards, speed bumps, traffic islands, roundabouts, corners. It was going to be a really hectic finale after quite an easy day, which is often it's often more dangerous when you've got fresh legs arriving to the most hectic part of the race in the last 5K. That is a dangerous place to be. Because everyone feels like they can have a stab. So, I think the roundabout started at about 6Ks to go, and then it was just hecticness from there. I had a chat with the DS from EF Education, Oatley, and he was adamant that it was position over power in this finale today, because everyone's going to have the power, but not everyone can have the position. So you got to work early to get up there and then hold your position until the end.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Dygert chasing. I did wonder at that moment because for Canyon Schramm, I would say if they had been going for the sprint, she would have been the rider to go for. But, it was Dygert actually. So Kopecky did a pretty big pull, but it was Dygert, in fact, that brought back, 3 35 to 40 seconds or
A
more.
minute, yeah.
And it makes you wonder if she hadn't done that. I think the break, to be honest, would have gotten closer to the win because of the technical finish. And that, in fact, would have made the race a bit safer almost for the GC contenders.
Yeah, you're bang on. And we saw the Chilean rider have a go, and we were actually talking in the press room saying, she has a potential to stay away because there was a nice big road, long drag up to the start of the technical section, and she was still about 16 seconds off the front of the peloton at that stage. So if she had entered that technical bit of the course heading into the finish, she had, and like things happened behind, she had the potential to take a monumental win. But I think with Dygert going in, and I did joke with you guys, but I actually think it's actually probably a bit serious. I think Dygert actually bringing down that gap to the breakaway was just an activation piece for her, because I do think it was an easy day on the legs in the peloton, and Dygert takes her performance extremely seriously. She knows what she needs to do to warm up to perform at her best, and I would not put it past her to give herself a 10-minute effort on the lead into that sprint.
Just on Dygert, I thought it was quite funny that, speaking to the SD Works riders and also to Danny Stam, that they all talked about how no one helped them in the chase, and they were all kind of complaining that they had to do it all themselves. And as I wrote in my piece just before on Escape, they must have missed that effort that Chloe Dygert did, because as you guys said, she took a huge chunk out of that time. And there was a moment there where we were even talking in the press centre, like, are they actually going to miss out on catching them? Because it was just, that gap was just kind of hovering out there. And then Dygert came to the front and smashed it apart. And yet still SD Works thought that they did all the work. And while they did ride the front for most of the day, it was interesting that they just neglected to mention that part.
That is classic SD Works. God, yep. You can't always be a martyr, even though we're sitting at the base of a church right now. But I think, I think Dygert needs to. Yeah, she can take a huge amount of credit for the fact that this was a bunch. Well, we thought it was going to be a bunch kick.
And on the topic of SD Works Pro Time, I think, this win means a lot. I mean, as a team that has won a lot, I think particularly what's going on within that team right now, this is going to lift morale for all those riders moving forwards. Tomorrow is another opportunity. I can assure you that there are going to be teams trying to do what happened today and hope that it can get, they can pull it off tomorrow. But for SD Works, I think the stage wins, you're almost guaranteed a stage win with Lorena Wiebes as long as everything comes together on a sprint stage, because right now she still is that unbeatable rider. And I think I made the comment that if Kopecky wasn't feeling good and she wasn't able to do her mega lead out, that Wiebes wouldn't win, and I was wrong.
It's interesting that Wiebes was asked in the press conference about whether she felt pressure today to win, given that things haven't been going exactly all that well with SD Works lately. And one of the other journalists in the press conference made the good point that with their GC leaders they're not riding for GC now, that all the pressure now falls to Wiebes. So whereas before, in an ideal situation, they would have been spreading the pressure load, if you like, between Kopecky, Van der Breggen and Wiebes. But now, because those two aren't firing, it's all on Wiebes. So while Lorena was very happy almost yesterday after getting second, there must have been a sense of pressure, and I think they'll be quite happy to get that win on the board, and that takes the pressure off for the next few days. I don't think we'll see them on the front all day tomorrow. I think they've got their win, and I think they'll say to other teams, look, we've got a win. If you guys want a win, then you need to be doing the chasing as well, because we've done our bit.
Then that opens it up, doesn't it, for the winner for tomorrow? But we can get into that at another time later in this pod, because just quickly, tomorrow is easier than today in terms of the parkour, and not as technical of a run-in. So it could be anyone's game tomorrow if Wiebes has to take a back seat.
Let's throw to Movistar rider Jelena Erić, who had a teammate Sarah Martin in the break today, and I would suspect that this team is going to be pretty active again tomorrow.
The third stage was again a fast start like the previous two, and we had quickly a breakaway with Sarah Martin which was really, really good for us. Then the peloton started chasing with a couple of teams taking the initiative to ride behind, and we caught them maybe on 5K to go, and the final was quite hectic and fast. with a couple of crashes. We luckily avoided them all. I hope all the riders are okay after that crashes. And then we tried to position as better as we could with Liane. It was only maybe 3Ks to go when the big crash happened, and we were only maybe 35 riders in the front, and then the final was quite technical, so we really fought to enter in a good position. And with that kick just before the finish line, it was dragging up, so the sprint was quite hard and slow. Finally, Liane finished on 5th position, and we are happy with that. I think it was a good race by the team, and one day less.
We need to talk about Vollering. I think that's the huge talking point today. As fantastic as Wiebes' win is, it's 100 and something for her. But Vollering came into this tour as the favourite, not the out-and-out favourite, because I think we have so many good contenders now that we can't just say it's like a 2-horse race. But that was really shocking to watch, and I think everyone felt that. And with the exiting of Elisa Longoborghini this morning, who would have been, we were hoping, a GC podium contender, and then Marlen Rusa 2 days ago, it just feels all a bit shit, to be honest. It sucked. No one wants to see a rider crash, but then Vollering, like to see her crash again this tour in different circumstance. What does this mean for the tour?
It puts a really bitter taste in our mouths, I think, seeing Vollering come down like that. It's been a topic of conversation the past 3 days, not just with you guys, but discussing it with riders and staff around what is the sustainability of this level of peak performance that we're currently walking, and how much longer can we indeed walk it without seeing more top riders burn out, as we've seen so far this tour, not just from illness, but from crashes, injury. Rosters simply aren't big enough to deal with the strain that is the Women's World Tour in 2025.
Yeah, it's a great point, Georgie. And if you are a subscriber of Escape, we're going to dive more into that topic in the Off the Mic. So, make sure you subscribe because you want to get that off the mic content.
Just on Vollering, I know she's the big name that crashed. There were a lot of other riders that crashed today as well, which I'm sure we'll get to. We've got the medical report in front of us here that we can go through. But Georgie, you were at the FDJ bus after the stage, and you kind of saw it all play out, didn't you, with Vollering coming in?
Yeah, I did. I booked it in my Adidas Sambas up to the FDJ bus. Not great for my shins. To make sure I was at the front of the restraining line to see the riders as they came in. I got there with good enough time. I wrote a piece on what the vibe was at the bus on Escape Collective. So if you want to go read more of that, head on over. But briefly, when I got there, the vibe was pretty concerned. Not a whole heap of conversation going on. If there was any, it was whispers. Press were circling, myself included. And Jan, Demi's fiance, was there with their dog Flo, and he was clearly extremely agitated about what had just happened.
Yeah, and Delcourt gave basically like a statement to all the media that was there, and Georgie, you were there for that moment, and I guess there was talk of respect, something along those lines, which was then again brought up in the press conference that he thought it was a matter of respect.
It was, and you could see that like the riders when they rolled in were like downtrodden completely, and it was a sense of that. Like there was Delcourt was protective, I'd say, was probably the biggest emotion I could see. He was protective of his riders. They were shell shocked when they rolled in. Not a whole heap of conversation, even despite Ali Wollaston getting third on the stage. There was pretty morose. The turbos were getting set up silently by the mechanics. Vollering was asked if she wanted to spin the legs. She did. So she gets on the turbo, straddles it, doesn't put a leg up, just takes a deep breath, and then gets on the turbo. And as she starts to pedal, she's looking a bit normal. But her teammate Ali Wollaston's next to her, and they're discussing the crash, and was privy to some of that discussion, as well as Vollering checking her helmet to make sure that hadn't been damaged, which is still out for debate. I think she's still getting concussion tests on that. But yeah, when all the press was told Delcourt would give a blanket statement, so then we rushed over, and that was a massive scrum. There was so many people. I really had to get my elbows out to get the microphone close enough to Delcourt to get his words. And yeah, he basically was like, he doesn't understand why people would risk their life for a bike race, and that is where the lack of respect comes in. We've discussed a lot around how the ASO and the UCI they blame things like handlebar width and gear ratios for crashes, when in reality it is course design. But in this instance, it was rider error that caused this crash. 2 separate crashes actually within the same moment. And and Delcourt called that out. He was like, how much do you really want to win this bike race? You're willing to risk lives in order to do it.
We haven't talked about the yellow jersey winner today, but Marianne Vos is back in yellow, and she was asked in her press conference about this respect issue and whether there is a lack of respect in the peloton now and whether that's changing. And she kind of batted the whole thing away quite diplomatically, I think, saying that it's the biggest bike race on the planet. Everyone wants to win. You've got to fight if you want to be in a big bike race and you want to win a big bike race. So it's just kind of how it is. And obviously no one wants to crash. No one wants to put themselves in a position or others in a position where they crash. But she just saw it as a racing incident where people are just trying to do their best.
Yeah, and you know what's cooked is that Loren and I were sitting next to each other in the press centre, and we're like, there's always one at a Tour de France. There's always one big crash that is definitive of the event. We've seen it every year. And I hate how we have to say that, and I hate how we have to say, well, then that one's done and it's behind us. That is something that we shouldn't have to say in this sport.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you want to wrap up the conversation on Demi and the crash right now, but for the listeners, Delcourt did say that Demi would go to the hospital this evening to get checked out. There is, in fact, no X-ray machine that follows. So for the listeners that don't know this, at the men's tour, the medical team does have an X-ray machine, not just for the bikes, for the riders, so they can get checked on the ground. And this was flagged to me, funny enough, by Brodie Chapman this morning, and I was pretty shocked when I learnt that news. Sorry I didn't share that, guys. And yeah, so Demi will head to the hospital, and then I'm sure FDJ Suez will pull out a press release. The intention is that she will line up again tomorrow, but let's see what happens.
Yeah, I heard that tidbit today as well about the X-ray machine actually at the Canyon SRAMs on the crypto bus, because Chloe Dygert was one of the riders that went down in that crash, and she kind of came in with a pretty sore looking shoulder, and the team doctor was there saying, can we go get an X-ray just to be sure? And then the race doctor was there saying there's no X-ray machine. There is one at the men's, not at the women's. They had one at the women's Giro apparently, but not at the women's tour. So obviously some work still to be done there. But just in terms of Vollering's injuries, I've got the medical report in front of me here, and it's saying Demi Vollering back trauma is what's listed here. So same as another couple of riders who've got similar kind of thing. Eugenia Bujak and Letizia Borghese have both got the same back trauma. So yeah, hopefully all those riders, and there are many riders that went down today, hopefully they all recover and can continue.
Yeah, I read this report and I'm looking at today, and I cannot but help think of 2024 Tour de France when Demi went back down and hurt her back. I think that's where the similarities end. What we saw today was the team surround Demi as she is their investment. She is their lead rider, and they treated her as such. She was pushed to the finish by 2 of her teammates. The staff were completely they were at her beck and call. Whatever she needed, they were there, which is a stark contrast to what we saw with her treatment at SD Works last year when this same incident happened.
Well, based on everything that we've seen today, stage 4, Georgie.
Yeah, so stage 4, we've got a I think it's 110 Ks, 120 Ks or such. I know in total it's 134 Ks with 764 meters of climbing. That's including neutral though. So they start in Semur, and they end in the town. They end in head down in a southeast direction, and they end in Poitiers. All right, so it is 130 k's. So that's 4.5 k's neutral there. It is a flat stage, likely if that same wind that we had today, likely a tailwind, so it'll be a fast day. The riders probably will be out there for, let's say, 3 and a bit hours probably. And yeah, not too many things to worry about for the riders in terms of technicality. They do go through a few towns, but in terms of the finish, it's far more straightforward than today. They enter the main city of Poitiers. They take a left turn at a roundabout, head along the river, right turn straight away, and then at 133 k's into the race, they take a left turn, and they've got a nice straight run into the finish. So we shouldn't see too many issues tomorrow. And I don't have wood around me to touch, so I'm going to just touch my head and hope for the best and everyone stays upright, because we do not want to see a repeat of today.
Well, I think there are going to be quite a few teams pretty motivated to do what we saw today. So why don't we hear from one of the most aggressive riders in the tour so far, Franzi Koch from Picnic-PostNL.
Yeah, today was stage 3 of the Tour de France Femmes. It was a long stage. It was 160 k, and not so many altitude meters. So it was a sprint day. Was first, the fight for a break. It was really fast. Quite a few people tried to go, and in the end, it was a group of 4 getting clear. A few riders in between, but they didn't make it. So the break was really strong. They got up like max 4 minutes. And SD Works took over the chasing then. But it was always a little bit hectical in the bunch still. Riders are still fighting for position, even though like nothing special is coming up. So there's always tension in the bunch. So even though it's like not the most exciting day, like you still have to be really focused and pay attention. Fight for the position is always going on. And at one point I actually thought like, oh, the break might make it, because the gap didn't really went down, even though we were riding really fast. Then also towards the end, the speed got really high. So then the break got catch back, and it was quite a small roller coaster in the final 15K. Quite a lot of roundabouts as well, which strung out the bunch a lot, and it always like bunched up again. And then there was unfortunately the crash. It was less than 4K to go on the roundabout where it just get narrow. We were like nearly all behind for our team. Megan made it in front of the crash, and she sprinted to a really good 4th place. So that was still a great result, like not how we wanted to race. Actually, we wanted to do a lead out for Raquel, but in the end, we still come home with the 4th place, which was good. And every one of us was safe, stayed upright. We were just caught back behind the crash, which is a bit unfortunate, but that's also racing sometimes.
Thanks for that, Francie. So before we wrap it up this evening, I think it's worth discussing the green jersey, because I reckon this year might be the most closely contested competition. And I bet you have some thoughts on this, Matt de Neef, but I reckon with the form of Wiebes and how Marianne Vos is looking, it's going to be interesting how those teams manage it, right? Because they clearly want the yellow jersey in the back end of this race, but the green jersey is also a really special jersey to take, and stage wins. Yeah,
it was kind of funny actually asking Marianne Vos today in her press conference. She's wearing the yellow jersey, and I'm there asking her about whether she's going for the green jersey. It's a bit of a weird question to ask, but it was kind of interesting because it's something that she's won twice in the past, and she's not going to be in yellow by the end of the race. And so I asked her, is green going to be a goal for her? And she was very cagey. She wouldn't say that it was. It was all about. It's all about yellow for Pauline. Obviously, is the goal. She says yellow at the moment is purely a bonus. The fact she was able to get it back today by finishing second and getting some more bonus seconds, and yet she's been going for all the intermediate sprints basically. And her take was that she doesn't want to just give away points in the green jersey. If she's able to go for them, and she knows that Wiebes is going to go for it, then she might as well just try and get some points. I suspect we'll see her up the road later in the race like we did in last year's tour. There's a couple of stages where she was up the road fighting so well. I think the stage that Kabul won, I think, where Voss fought back a bunch of times, was an incredible performance. So I'm sure we'll see that again. And Wiebes, when we asked her about whether she's going for green, she also gave a non-answer as well, where she was kind of like, didn't even really answer it at all. So I think she was just saying, I kind of just did a little bit of a sprint today. It didn't cost me much, so I figured why not. So I think they're both probably going for green. I think it is probably a minor goal for both of them, but hopefully they both fight it out for the rest of the race, because it'll give us another race within a race to talk about.
I feel like it'd be a big personal goal, but how does it fit within the team goal? And yellow is more important.
Yeah, I mean, it's yellow jersey at the Tour de France. Go for it. Look, I'm a concerned friend. I don't like seeing my friends crash. And so many of my friends in the peloton know that they will get a text from me saying, "Are you okay?" Ruby Rose McGannon, I'm looking at you. I think I sent you about 3 texts that never got a response. Are you okay? It's 3 separate crashes this year. So please respond to me. But and I need to send you one for today, so I hope you're okay, Rubes. But I saw Matt de Neef showed me the medical report from today, and one of my best buds, Loretta Hansen, featured on it, and I was concerned. So I sent her a text saying, "Rets, you okay? I saw the medical report. You came down, like shoulder, like what's going on, man?" And anyway, I get the all clear. They had mixed her up with Bartzi or Elisa Balsamo.
I mean, she's just as speedy and she's always in the front. So I guess easy mix-up, right?
Easy mix-up.
But she looked too chipper, because I saw her at the end of the race. I was chatting with her at the bus and I was like, definitely didn't crash today.
I mean, well, you never know. Some people have different responses to crashes. Demi had, morose and nearly tears. Loretta could be chipper.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up this podcast this evening. We're going to probably go back into the press room and take some of that delicious chocolate mousse, and I saw some other delights. For the subscribers, please stick around, because we're going to jump into the off the mic topic now, or topics. You never know what's going to come. And again, for those that have not subscribed, please subscribe to Escape Collective. It helps us to do this wonderful work, and who knows what interesting things you might find out in Off the Mic.